Hello, I'm Richard Burton from the Richard Burton Arts Centre here at Bempton on the Yorkshire coast, and today we're going to have a go at a painting that's been sent in by somebody who's been following us, John from Australia. I want to thank him very much for sending this picture in, and we're going to have a go at really fast and loose reflections and try and capture that mood and atmosphere and show you how we can use a few steps and really capture something really effective. Now, people think they're really hard to do with reflections. Well, I want to show you how we can break them down into simple steps. And if you break them down into simple steps, you'll find they're far easier to do than what you realise. So come on, let's have a go. Okay, so this is the picture. It's all about the big reflections and the big sky. Well, actual fact, I want to say a special thank you to John from Australia who sent me this picture and given me the permission to have a go at it. It's a really lovely scene. It's called a great name, Squeaking Point in Tasmania, and there's lovely sky, lovely water reflections, and those trees, obviously those are unique shaped trees, and we'll try and capture that atmosphere. So let's get down to the drawing. Okay, so let's kick off with the sketching. Sketching is going to be very minimal really. So what we're going to try and do is establish the horizon line, because we want to get that divide between the water reflections and the sky. So I'm going to put that in. I'm going to give a suggestion of this shoreline here on the right hand side, give an indication of the reeds, just a bit of the foliage, just get a sense of the size and shape, put the horizon line in, and then establish that island of trees and just give the essential elements that make up the composition. And that's as simple as it. Now, I'm in two minds whether to bother, but I think I am. I'm going to use some masking fluid on here. I'm just going to protect a few of the highlights. The shoreline in the far distance is quite bright, and I want to put some lovely colours in place, and I just want to protect that light. So I'm going to put a little bit of masking fluid with my old gnarly brush. I've got a dedicated brush for this. Remember, masking fluid will ruin brushes, so you just be careful. I'm going to put that in. I'm going to put a little bit of suggested for the lighter trees on the island, just to protect those, just on the trunks. And that's really about it. Also, while we're letting that dry, we've got our free watercolour guide, which is down in the link below. It's something that we've been working on for this last year. It's if you're new to watercolour or you're coming back to watercolour, it's 5 simple steps. Just get you into water, get you started. You'll find it useful, I'm sure you will. There's over 3,000 people that are subscribed to this and following it regularly. So please just print it off and it's yours to keep. Also, we've got our online watercolour course, which I've put together using my skills from teaching people watercolour from the very basics for over 20 years now. It's got all the steps that really give you clarity and confidence. So please explore it. It's on our new website in the link below, which is richardburtonwatercolour.com. Have a look and let me know what you think. Well, for this I've sort of picked out 5 brushes. I've got 2 large ones, 2 medium wash ones around size 10, and then I've got a couple of small ones, one with a point, so I can just put those trees in the distance, and that should suffice me for the painting. Okay, so we're going to start with colour storing. It's going to be mostly around the sky and the water, so I want to get that started. Start with a couple of blues. I'm going to use cobalt blue, and I'm going to use a bit of Prussian blue just to give me a sort of a blue mix, and then I'll come down. I'm going to mix a little bit of purple into there, so well, not purple, I'm going to add some alizarin crimson into the mix and create a bit of a purple, and then I'm going to move forward and start creating a couple of greys. I'm going to use burnt umber and a little bit of cobalt blue and a little bit of crimson just to get a grey. This is actually going to work out a bit darker than I want, because I've got to go a bit more brown in it than planned. So I'm just going to water that down, and then I'm going to finish off with a purple grey, which is going to be cobalt blue and a bit of crimson really to finish off. And then I wet the paper. I need to put some warmth on the other side, and I'm going to use yellow ochre, a pool of yellow ochre, and set myself up with a pool of cadmium red, and that will start the painting. Okay, so we're going to now start the really fun bit. We're going to get this sky. The sky's got high level cloud. There's a lot of warmth in there, blue coming through as well. So we're going to start with warming it up. Wet the paper first of all, let that soak in, just let that soak in, so we get to that sort of damp to moist surface, not wet but damp to moist. Then when I've got that, well, I'm going to start off, we're going to warm up the surface first. I'm going to put some of the lighter colour in, which is going to be the yellow ochre. Put that in, drop that a little bit of warmth in there. There's quite a bit of in there, and I want to make sure that that goes in and settles in. I'll let that settle in, and then we'll start with my greys. I'm going to put some layer the greys, lighter grey to darker grey, onto that moist and damp surface, so I can put my brush strokes in place and they'll hold their shape. That's the key, because I want to sort of create that feeling of those high level clouds. They've got that little bit of texture and a little bit of feel about them. So let's try and capture that. Not hard edges, I just want controlled diffusion so we get that shape. And then once I've done that, I'm going to punch in a little bit of blue. Let's get a bit of blue in there to make it come through, both at the top and at the bottom towards the horizon. And then I'm going to add a little bit of darker shade into and finish off shaping up the clouds. And then let the watercolour do its magic. Let it paint, let it dry, let it diffuse on its own while it's still on the moist, and we'll get a really nice effect. Okay, so now let's get into the water reflections, and what we're going to really capture that sort of feeling of the clouds and the sky reflected in that water. We're not going to tackle any of the reflective nature of the trees. Ignore that completely. I'm just putting the underwashes, the undercolour, trying to get that feel of the reflective sky. So start off, we'll wet the paper, give it a little bit of moisture, let that soak in as I did before with the sky. Then I'm going to warm it up with some yellow ochre and a little bit of cadmium red. There's a little bit of warmth in there just to give that sort of feeling of warmth. Then we'll start in with the blues. Now we'll set up a big wash brush, start with my blue at the top, which is that combination of Prussian blue and cobalt blue. Punch that in at the top, let that soak down. And then as I come down, I'm going to start now adding the greys. Now what I can see here is a lot more purple. There's a lot more purple in that greys. Now I've got a middle purple grey in my palette, which I'm going to pick out, drop that in first onto this damp and diffuse surface, so they diffuse that little bit. I've also got a little bit more brown towards the bottom here, which is a sort of browner grey that we've got down here. So I'm going to put those in, layer them in, just let them settle, let them diffuse, give them a bit of control, let them soak in, and then as it sort of moves towards that, not dry, but it's moving towards that from damp to moist surface, I'm dropping a little bit more darker grey into place just to give that extra little bit of depth to the water. Do it quickly, and then I'm going to leave it and let the diffusion just take hold and create the magic of the sky reflection. Okay, so the key was to let that dry, let the underwash completely dry. All that diffusion's happening now. You can see how the colours are all settled. They've created that little bit of granulation as well, giving that extra little bit of energy into the clouds, which really works well. Now we're going to put some punch in. We're going to put the distance in the background. There's two layers of hills by the looks. I can see a very distant hill, so I'm going to put those in first using basically cobalt blue into that purple mix in the middle of the palette, and just drop those in and let them diffuse right down to the water's edge. Now we'll continue putting that underwashes in place just on the island on the left. I'm going to use yellow ochre with a little bit of cadmium red and a little bit of burnt sienna. Just drop that in with a little bit of cobalt blue as well, to be fair, just to get a lighter tone on the island. That will be coming to play later. And then I'm also going to come down into the foreground and the immediate right hand side where there's that shingle beach, or shingle shoreline I should say, and you've also got that grasses coming out, which I'm going to utilise again this similar colour. Only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drop a little bit of purple lake into it, or you can use sort of cobalt blue and a little bit of crimson in, to be fair, something similar, and just drop that in amongst the yellow ochre and the warmer colours, and just create that feeling of beach with a sense of the reeds in the background, and just keep that loose. And while it's on the damp, I'm going to drop a few greys in there just to give the effect of the reeds in the background. Okay, so now we're going to deal with that trees, the wonderful trees on that island there. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to work from the light to the dark, and I'm going to start from the top to the bottom. So I'm going to mix a green, which I think will encapsulate the sort of the canopy area, and I'm just going to dry brush that on, and I'm going to use cobalt turquoise with a little bit of raw umber and a little bit of cobalt blue in the mix there, and a little bit of crimson as well. Just a combination of those will make a nice delightful green that I can utilise for the tops of canopies. Bring that down. We've got the masking fluid just protecting those highlighted tree trunks, and then just bring that down. Then I'll mix some dark into there just to give some extra shade in the heart of that little copse of trees. And that's really about it. Just do it quite quickly. It'll become damp, but just let it flow together, just diffuse slightly, and keep that shape, overall crispness to the edge of the trees, but a diffusion within the trees, and just let it settle. Okay, so let's now bring a bit of shape to this. I'm going to take the masking fluid off, now it's thoroughly dried. Once I've done that, I'm going to drop in the tree trunks, which are sort of a lighter purple yellow ochre with a little bit of crimson in there. Just drop those in and give them a little bit of shape. And then I'm going to add a little bit of yellow ochre around the base of those trees, just to give a little bit more punch to them. Let that settle in, and then drop a little bit, finally a little bit more dark in that copse. And then also along the waterline, which is just a little bit darker. Then I'll leave that, and then I'll go over, put a little bit more definition to the horizon, just where I think there's some far distant buildings, just a little bit of sense in there, a little bit blues and greys in there. Then we'll move over to the right hand side and get that big copse of trees that are hanging over the water, and those I'm going to work from light to dark. So I'm going to make a light green using cobalt turquoise with a little bit of raw umber and a little bit of yellow ochre or lemon yellow, just to give it a bit of a green. Drop that in. Once I've dropped that in, I'm then going to make some dark green, which is going to be Prussian blue and burnt sienna. Just make some dark green with a little bit of crimson in there as well, and just drop that in onto the damp just to shape that tree and shape. I'll also drop it into the reflections as well, so I'm going to bring the reflections into play as well. All done quite quickly, making sure that the surface remains moist to damp. Let them diffuse and then leave it, and then that's it. I just took a look at the foreground now and just wanted to give that shingle shoreline a little bit more definition. So what I've done is just a bit of a dry brushwork with burnt sienna, just scraped on the surface, and it just gives that shingle a bit of sparkle. I'm happy with that. I've then added some more dark into the reeds just at the base, trying to give them a little bit more a feel of shape, and I've dropped that again on the diffused semi-damp stage, and hopefully that's given them enough definition. We'll have a look at it later in the end and see where we need any extra, but for now I think that'll do. Okay, so now we're down to the reflections, which are really going to bring this picture to life. That's what it's all about, the sky and reflections. So what we're going to start with, get with the distance. I'm going to use a mix of that cooler side of the palette. I'm going to use cobalt blue and light red with a touch of the crimson, which we've sort of got in the middle of the palette now. I'm going to put that in, diffuse it through from the background, just bring it down, let it diffuse, let it flow in. It's tonally, it's not quite as dark as the background, but it is a darker tone. So make sure that goes in nice and quickly, working from the right to the left. I'm then going to work over to the tree copse, which is going to be the central signature reflection. And then I'm going to mix some lighter green using, I've got a sort of combination of cobalt turquoise, raw umber, and a little bit of cadmium yellow in there, or lemon yellow. And then just drop that in onto a dry surface, but it suddenly becomes damp, and I'm going to be carefully shape it as I come down, making sure the heart of the reflection is diffused, but the edges I'm going to let them move over onto a dry surface. You're going to get those broken edges of reflections. So as I drop that in, bring it down, I'm then going to let it soak in, and then make a point of mixing some stronger darks, which are going to be Prussian blue, raw umber with a bit of burnt sienna. Just drop those in, quite dark, drop it in, and just gradually build that up, and they will then give that sense of depth, but make sure that in the heart of the reflections it's diffused, and on the edges of the reflections you've got dry brush strokes, and then you'll get that feeling of real effective reflections. The key though with the reflections is to let the magic happen. Stop the brushwork when it's still on the damp side and let those diffusion blend together. Then you're really letting the paper, letting the watercolour paint itself and give that extra bit of energy to those reflections. They really will look reflective. And while I'm going to finish off, I'm then going to look at it, stand back, add a few darks here and there that need probably a little bit more in the foregrounding parts. Probably just give a little bit more density to the reflections in the background because they just need balancing off. And then we've got a painting. Okay, so there we have it. I put the mount round it, and I've obviously put a frame round it, as you can see, and I'm really quite pleased with it. I want to say a special thank you again for John, who sent me this picture over for me to have a go at. I've never been to Australia, but I've now got the bug. I want to go over and have a look. And obviously this is Squeaking Point in Tasmania, and it's big sky, big water, big reflections, and I think using these steps, I think we've caught it. I think we have. I think we've caught it. I'll know better when it's dried a little bit more to get a real feel, but I think we've got it, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Also, I want to say we're on the cusp of getting 10,000 subscribers for the channel now. We're only just a year old, and I want to say a big thank you for those of you that found us and have liked it that much and wanted to subscribe. And if you're new to the channel, of course, if you like this sort of material, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It gets us picked up by a wider audience. And once again, thank you very much. It's been an incredible journey for us, and we've enjoyed every step of it, and it's great to communicate with everybody and get a feel for what interest there is in watercolour, and we know there's a terrific amount of watercolour interest, and I want to be able to show you with a few simple techniques. Understanding those techniques, you can really create something really effective. In the meantime, enjoy and keep painting.